All right, welcome to the first episode of Stress Test. At least that's what we're calling it so far, unless we can't call it that for some reason, or we think of something better to call it, and we'll change the name afterwards. But right now, we're called Stress Test. Either way, my name is Hammad, and
and my name's Rocky. So at least we one of the things that we want to talk about here is just our societal impacts that we see, and give our thoughts and actually stress test hypothesis that we're seeing across I guess our society, right?
Yeah. I mean, like, stress test is getting multiple aspects to it. Like, Rocky mentioned stress testing, what we're seeing, like hypotheses that we're seeing or making, and other people are making about our society, and also just maybe we'll have conversations about topics that are controversial in current society, and stress test how much we can get away with at the end of the day before we're canceled.
Yeah, no, I mean, and also we want to really validate the things that we're seeing in society. Like, does this theory or aspect that people are asking for actually make sense? Who's arbitrating these things? Why are they arbitrating it? And then what's the intention behind a lot of these things? I think, like, in our society today, we're seeing a lot of, I guess, movement on a lot of fronts, right? Of course, I'm being ambiguous, but we'll get into a lot of these topics, not only today, but over time as we have more episodes. But I think the thing we really want to bring out here is just our thoughts. Once again, it's just our perspective.
Right.
And I don't know, what do you want to chat more about our perspective and beginnings?
So I think, like, just let's do a segue. Let's do a clean. We sort of cut into like our intros, and then let's talk a little. I want to give the audience a little intro into who we are.
Yep.
Just like fundamentally, just so we can maybe they can relate to us better.
Yeah.
Based on who we are, etc. So I'll go first.
Yep.
So like I said, my name is Hammad. I am essentially in the software engineering field, right? I work for a tech startup. That's I'm not going to say what that is, but I work for a tech startup. I graduated college. I went to University of Maryland. I graduated college in 2014. Been working in tech ever since, right? I did stints at various companies, big tech name companies you've heard of. And really, for me. I've just been, I've been friends with Rocky for a long time now, since essentially before we graduated college. And so it's been like 9-10 years, something now.
Yeah, I would say 10 years.
Something like that now. Yeah. And really throughout the years, we've been talking a lot about different topics like we see. I've seen a lot of things that are happening in society. The world has changed dramatically in 10 years. It was starting to change back then, but really now it's almost, some parts of it are unrecognizable to me.
Yeah.
Right. And so I feel like there's a place for us to just have those conversations, and we have those conversations all the time. So we figured, let's bring it to the table and talk about it.
Yeah.
You want to talk about yourself?
Yeah. And I'm also, my name's Rocky. I also went to the University of Maryland, studied engineering as well. I work in, the software engineering field, if you will, managing programs across big tech companies. Of course, like Hammad, I'll probably keep that confidential, if you will, for the purpose of this discussion. But once again, I think we really started having these discussions in the lounge too, right? In Maryland. And of course, we have continued that over time. But like, if I were to call out the most diverse set of folks that I've ever met, it was probably in the lounge. Not only from a space of race. I mean, you also had sexual orientation, genders, right? Like backgrounds.
Right.
So, I mean, I don't think I've ever been in a area or a small area like the lounge and had as much diverse conversations as we've had in that area during that time. And to your point, like, that's when I started seeing things change.
Right.
And of course, we started having discussions. And once again, Hammad and I have had these discussions. We won't always agree, but I think one of the things that I really like in our discussions is we're cordial, you know.
Right,
We're,
right,
yeah,
exactly.
right. And I think like
we have a conversation.
Yeah, exactly.
We have a conversation, a debate, a logical back and forth,
Yeah.
and it's not disrespectful.
Yeah.
It's not meant to be hurtful. It's really just meant to be a discourse.
Yes.
And a forum for us to just open, and we feel safe talking to each other about these things.
And I mean, not to say that we're gonna just disagree with each other for the sake of disagreeing.
Yeah,
but
of course.
we align on many things.
Right.
Probably why we're good friends. But to the point that Hammad brought up earlier, it does seem like we're in a space right now as a society where you can't have an honest discussion without someone, you know, attacking you, or the term that's popular now is canceling you, right? And we kind of want to question why, or stress test why are people getting canceled for certain things, or why do we have to agree with certain things? A big thing that I see is like the discussion of inclusion, right? It seems like it's very contradictory in certain spaces, because inclusion means one thing for a set of people, and if you disagree with that or have cordial discourse, you get canceled. So I think it's one of those things that I want to have a discussion with Hammad, like just open, and you know, there's going to be things we disagree on, obviously, but the main point is we're humans. And at the end of the day, we have to be cordial with each other, not only between he and I because we're friends, but like as human beings across society. You know, I shouldn't be, you know, ostracized because I have a certain belief that doesn't hurt anybody, or I don't know. You can continue that conversation too, but I think that's what we want out of this podcast.
Yeah,
right?
and I think we'll dive into that a little bit more in this episode. But like I do also just want to, like, so we mentioned a couple of things, and just for everybody's sake, like, I want to make sure everybody understands this is our first time doing this, and really we're not professionals. We have nothing. We don't even know if this stream is working. If this recording is working correctly or not. We think it is, and we're doing this, but we're not professionals at this, right? We're from both in the tech industry, and we just have thoughts, and we just want to. We have conversations. We were like, let's put this conversation online. I feel like maybe people will get value out of it, and if nobody does, that's fine. And thank you for watching, right? Yeah. Appreciate you taking the time to watch it. If you'd like it, just tell us what you like, and if you don't like it, tell us what you don't like, and we'll see. Again, like, we're gonna do what is comfortable for us, right? We're gonna do what we want to do. At the end of the day, that's what this podcast is for. It's not really for appeasing anybody, right? We're not trying to make people happy. We're just trying to speak our thoughts.
Yeah, totally.
And if somebody takes value from it, that's awesome. So anyway, we might make mistakes. That's my point. We might make mistakes as far as like recording is bad. Like we might stutter a little bit. Again, we're not professionals. We're doing this for the first time. This is actually our first time ever sitting in front of a camera and recording something. So just want to make sure to throw it out there, like, give us some leeway if you're judging the quality of this, right? We're gonna make it better, hopefully, over time. If we feel like this is going somewhere, right?
Agreed.
I also wanted to just show. Rocky mentioned a couple of things. Like, he mentioned the lounge where we all became friends. It's really just the lounge that was in the University of Maryland in the engineering department, where everybody came and did work. They just gathered, talked to each other, discussed topics, etc. And that's where we first met. And we started having these conversations. And again, we were working on, we wanted to do startups, right? Like, we were in the tech, and this is a startups was a thing. And so we got together to do startups, and we had having these conversations as a side effect of those. And now we still work on stuff together on the side, but we also had these conversations, which is why we're here today.
Yeah, no, most definitely. And I think one of the things that I really want to bring up here is just like, like, I think it was just one of those areas where, once again, we come from very diverse backgrounds, and I think that's really what gives us great, scintillating discussions, if you will. Yeah. But once again, to Hammad's point, we're starting off, so our agenda is just to kind of like showcase who we are, why we came up with this, and really, to Hammad's point, if there are, please be very forgiving in this first episode, because we are coming to of age, I guess is the term. I mean, you can't see it right now on the screen, but we've got a pretty ingenious, I would say, setup with our mics and our camera. To Hammad's point, I don't even know if this is recording, but once again, the hope is we'll get better over time, right? Yeah. And we'll provide better quality as we get more mature in this game. Yep. So looking forward to it.
Cool. And yeah, I guess like, the next topic, just a little bit more about ourselves. And we'll wrap that up. I know you guys don't want to hear about us all the time, but like, I'm originally, I guess I'll talk about that. I'm originally from Pakistan, and I'm a Muslim by my religious belief. But again, I've lived here for 24 years. I'm an American. Yeah, I'm a U.S. citizen. I'm an American, right? And so I have opinions just like everybody does. Rocky,
Yeah.
about yourself?
I'm Tongan, but first generation American. Was born and raised here in the Bay Area, to be more specific. Joined the military after some trouble growing up, so a bit diverse on that side.
Another topic for another day.
Another topic for another day. So found my way into the military, and I think that's what piqued my interest in becoming an engineer. Really didn't have any interest in any academics until I joined the military, and then of course that led me to the University of Maryland, where I was able to meet Hammad, and the group of friends that we were able to set there, and we still have discussions with on a daily in the lounge.
Right.
So thanks for the context there. I apologize for missing that. But yeah, that's a brief background on who I am as well.
Cool. And I guess I just want to say, like, our thoughts are our own, right? We're not representative of anybody. Yeah. We don't represent anybody else's. Our thoughts are literally our own. My thoughts are mine. Rocky's thoughts are his. And we don't represent who we work for. We don't represent any sort of group. We don't represent any agenda. We really don't care what other people think about what we think. It's just thoughts that come to us. And again, sometimes we may have initial thoughts and then we might change our mind because we learn more information. Like, we might have a conversation and I might convince something, right? I might convince Rocky of something. He might convince me of something, right? So again, we're not here to offend anybody. We're not here to attack anybody. We are really here to just express our opinions. And we might say if we think something is right or wrong. But again, it's what we think is right or wrong. It doesn't mean we hate somebody for it or anything like that.
Yeah, totally agree. And that's another thing I want to say, plus one, Hammad, right, is, we're discussing things with the information that we have now. So as humans, as new information comes in, I think we should reserve the right to be able to change our minds, if you will, on certain outcomes of how we think. So totally agree with that.
And we probably need to put this at the beginning of the video, but we wanted to talk about what is I think Rocky sort of touched upon what we're going to be discussing.
That's for sure.
Right? Social commentary, what's current events, right? Maybe we'll throw in some discussion about how we do finances. We're not experts in finance. Don't use us as the experts for finance, but we're just to discuss, like, what steps have we taken to build our financial wealth. What steps have we taken to help other people, like our relatives or family members, build their financial wealth? And what is some of the probably, like, anything that really comes to mind to us, really, that we think is worth discussing on here, we'll discuss, right? So that's really what we're here to
and probably about. Even some entrepreneurship, right? Like Hammad said earlier, we're very interested in building companies from a software perspective. And I also think, like, to your point, we had a discussion off video here. It was about, like, going into other avenues that we may not necessarily, or like he and I don't traditionally go into, like starting restaurants. So we'll probably dive into some of those conversations, and then we'll pretty much cover the gamut. And of course, once again, this is our first time, really shooting this podcast. We literally bought these mics on Thursday. Today's Saturday, so around 2 days ago. Yeah. So we're just going to venture and start biasing towards probably some topics that, people are interested. We're interested ultimately, right? Because that's really what it comes down to. Right. If we're interested in it, we're going to talk about it.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Cool.
So I think that's a pretty good intro. What do you think?
Yeah, same.
I don't know what else to talk about, honestly. I feel like we jumped in a lot of places there, and we probably confused people, all right?
Yeah.
But
thanks for keeping us on track there. I think I was the
this is our first time doing it. We don't really have a script. We don't even have an outline of what we're talking about. We really just get started. Like, let's get started. Let's do an intro and talk about ourselves, and then we talk about what we're talking about, right? Yeah. And I think maybe the next thing we could dive into is really, let's go a little bit more into, like, why do we think this? Like, why are we having this? Why do we feel necessary?
What's the impetus of this?
Necessary? Maybe a little deeper into that.
Yeah.
You want to start first?
Yeah. No. I think
Actually, let's talk. Like, why don't you tell me why you think we're starting this?
Why do I
tell you? And let's make sure we're on the same page.
We're doing it live.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think, at least based on our discussions, one of the things that concerns me is just, and I brought this up earlier, is that I don't feel like there is a safe space, if we want to use that term here, for us to have honest discussions,
right,
and really challenge ideas that are being presented in the public. I think there are times where I feel like I disagree with certain initiatives that is being pushed within society, but there's always that overhanging fear where, you know, like, hey, if I voice this opinion just based on the anecdotal evidence that I've seen, or the sample size that I've seen prior to this, that was fairly relative, people being canceled. And it's not a fact of like, hey, I believe you're wrong. It's more on the basis of like, have we questioned this, right? Like, have we, like, how valid is this, right? Like,
I would go as far to say it is a question of whether we believe it's right or wrong.
Right.
It's not whether or not you are a bad person or somebody is a bad person, right? It's about, do we agree with what you're doing? Do we believe it's right or wrong? Do we think it's right or wrong? Again, not saying somebody is bad, good, or discriminating or anything like that. It's really just like, look, I don't agree with this.
Yeah.
And I feel like in this country I should have that option.
Yeah, right? I agree. And I do think like there's, to some extent, there's a term, what's that? The Emperor's New Clothing.
Yeah.
Where, people tend to follow trends blindly, and they just say yes to everything. And next thing you know, you're just caught there trying to figure out like, hey, why did we agree to this initiative in the first place?
Right.
Like, where did this come from? Did no one stress test this prior to us? Plug for stress test. You saw that?
I saw that. Yeah.
Did no one stress test this initiative or this hypothesis prior to us all agreeing? And that's the problem that I see is like, there's an agreement, but I don't think like I haven't agreed to it. You haven't agreed to it. And it seems like based on discussions that I have with a lot of other people, once again, it's a small sample size, but they do represent the folks who live in the society. They haven't agreed to it either. So it seems like, there's...
It's common.
Yeah, exactly.
It's common, and we're just having this conversation. There's a lot more people I feel like want to speak out or speak up and express their opinion, or maybe they're just either like they think differently and they're just not willing to speak up about it, or they're too scared to speak up about it, right?
Or they don't have a forum, right?
They don't have a forum, and which...
Twitter,
and let's go into that. Maybe let's go into that, right?
Yeah.
Like I'm gonna be honest. Like I feel like if I express certain opinions, I would get canceled. I'm not, again, right now, I'm not important enough to be canceled, I think. But I feel like if I said that, like some of the things that I feel are, I would get canceled. And I don't think that was true 10 years ago. I don't think that was true like 2 decades ago. I think really just in the last like 5 years, this the strange phenomenon everybody must have heard of called cancel culture has taken off, right? And I'm actually afraid. I'm afraid to say things that are on my mind, even if they're not hurtful, just my opinions on certain things.
And I would also say, like, to that point, a lot of it as well, when you're looking at cancel culture, it seems to be a lot of the issues or use cases that I've seen have been largely taken out of context, right? So, for example, they can do the same thing to you where it's like, hey, Hammad disagrees with this. He's a bigot because of this.
Right? They might take snippets of this exact video, this exact podcast, and literally post it and say, "Oh, this person is a hater. Yeah. He hates these group of people. We need to get rid of him." Right? And that brings another topic, right? Like those people who are doing that, I feel like they're a small group of people, but they have. This has been said by multiple people. I'm not terming this. I'm not coining this, right? They are the loudest, to use other people's terms, the loudest people in the room on Twitter, right? I don't post on Twitter. I don't think I've ever posted anything on Twitter, and like that's just me. Like I don't even know if I have the app installed, honestly. But obviously I see some tweets and I see like news about tweets. Yeah. Isn't that crazy? like somebody posts something 20 years ago and you're going to cancel them now, but then like you go and look at their stuff and like they're going to get they themselves are getting canceled because of the stuff they had done, right? It to me it's so insane that what's the character limit these days in Twitter?
Probably 100. I thought it was 128, 142 characters.
Something like that. Yeah. So in that many characters, somebody can get
enough
their life ruined.
Yeah.
That's what canceled means, right? You're ruining somebody's life.
Yeah. No, and to your point, like I think that's even a broader perspective here is just like we live in such a short attention span society where like people aren't really willing to dig into the nuances of your discussion, right? So you can say something to your
headliners.
Exactly.
You don't read the content.
Yeah.
It's the articles. You see a news feed, you're reading the article headline.
Exactly.
You don't even click the article and you're making a judgment call.
Yeah.
And you don't know that article may be from CNN, another biased news source.
Fox News too.
Another biased news source, Fox News. Like I'm not going left or right. I'm just telling you what I think. I think a lot of the sources are biased and people read the headliners of the news sources that they or the people around them read, right? Without necessarily fact checking against other news sources, or even taking things with a grain of salt, right? And I feel like I've become very cynical in the sense that any news source that gives me information, I take with the same grain of salt.
Yeah. I mean, I'll be frank. I mean, I fell victim to a lot of those, headlines. Especially in the early 2010s when Twitter started coming out, and of course clickbait was just becoming a term, right? Like I started falling victim to it, like, oh, this person believes this, but then when you start to read the nuances or getting more details or more information on it, you start to realize, like, whoa, media company A or B or regardless, it seems like they may have manipulated the headline in order to get a certain outcome, and I think that's I think us as a society, we have to be able to manage those biases, right? We have to really force ourselves to look at the data holistically versus just to your point, accepting 142 characters as truth, right? And I don't know if that's actually happening because think about all the crap you have to do and on any given day, right? Usually you're going to take the laziest approach or the most optimal approach, right? And take it for what it's worth and say, okay, like I read somewhere that this individual was a bad person. No, the media who represented that, right? Manipulated it in order to be a bad person or a great person, right? So, we've seen that over the past 4 years, 6 years with, whether it be politics, whether it be, science, whatever, it's clear that that's happening. So I think as a society, we have to be able to manage through that, which sucks. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
Like, because that's the whole point of us being this technologically enabled community is, we should have information delivered to us faster. However, we're at this point in time now where it's not only being delivered to us quickly, but we now have to be able to grunge through that ourselves. Right. And to your point, that's what we're trying to do, right? Rather than just blindly accept initiatives or agendas, we want to be able to, grunge through it, logically step through it, or stress test. Once again, another plug for stress test if you're not tired of plugs yet. But yes, validate these hypotheses that we hear out there. And I think that's the great thing that Hammad and I are able to do in private prior to this is we have like deep discussions about this, like philosophically, what does this mean? Realistically, what does this mean, right? Because there's sometimes a difference. Yeah, and
we're not here to give you news. Honestly, we're here to take we're assuming people have heard about the topics we're going to talk about, right? And we're not going to pick obscure things. And maybe you'll learn something new or something that's happening that you maybe weren't paying attention to the news one day and you missed something. Maybe the article is small or something. We see it and we don't want to talk about it. Maybe you'll learn something. But we're not here to we're not here to necessarily convince people, right? If you get convinced by something we say, that's fine. That's not our intention. Our intention is really to just have that discourse. Yeah. Right. That's important to note because we want to make sure. I don't want to be the source of misinformation or anything like that. I really just want to make sure everybody understands that I'm discussing something that is going on today, or in my life, right? Yeah. And just want to have a conversation with Rocky about it.
Yeah. And I mean, it's purely opinion at the end of the day, right?
Exactly.
Like our opinions. I mean, our hope is that we can provide enough justifications to back up, what we feel or what we have strong opinions or loose opinions on. And so hopefully we'll be able to discuss that in depth here.
Yeah.
And I mean, I will say this. I mean, I'm hoping I learn from other people, through community chats or whatever. So if there is opportunities for that, I mean, I'm hoping that, new information that they have with logic that they can justify or convey I will definitely listen to that. And I'm pretty sure Hammad will listen to it as well. So,
I guess to give some information, like I'm 30 years old, right? Mm-hmm. I've been in the U.S. for 24 years of my life, right? And so my opinion has been shaped mostly by living here. Yeah. Right. It's not like I'm an outsider that I came here and like this is bad or this is bad. Like, no, I lived here. I grew up here. I went to elementary school, high school, middle school, high school, college. I work here. Like, so I want to continue living here, right? And so my thoughts are things that I think could be better for our society. Like, I think that it could be better, right? I'm not saying they are going to make things better. I'm not saying I'm the solution to everything, right? And I don't think Rocky believes that he's a solution to anything or everything, right? It's just that we have, obviously, everybody, as in democracy, everybody should have opinions on what would make our society better, what would make people more comfortable, what would make people's lives better, and what would make our society a better place. And that's everybody should have an opinion on that. Even you should have an opinion on that. Right, and we're just here to say what we think that is. Yeah. At the end of the day, right?
No, I totally agree. Plus 1,000 of that. Okay. So,
what else we talked about? So, yeah, we introduced ourselves. Yeah. We've done like why, really just
the intentions of this podcast.
Why we're doing this podcast, right? Do you have anything else you want to add to that?
Not at the moment. I guess to your point, yeah, I think ultimately what we want to do is just provide ideas that hopefully, and I know I use that word twice, but I want to emphasize that, will benefit our society at some point in time, right?
Yeah,
realistically, that's what makes a great society, and that's what allows us to evolve, is having differing opinions and finding ways to collaborate, to come on some kind of compromise that allows us to push forward. And usually, I mean, those are the things that we're looking to do here.
Right. And that actually reminds me, I wanted to say, like, another objective of doing this podcast, I feel like we have a perspective that we bring that that's not typically seen in the podcasting, like, universe currently, right? I mean, we're two tech people. Yeah. That typically you see a lot of tech videos on there, really talented people like showcasing their tech skills and teaching other people what they're doing. But I don't think we see a lot of that, of this type of stuff, where our tech folks, who are a large portion of our country, right, of our population, who have opinions and views on certain things, and I feel like there's not enough commentary. And there might be. I'm sure there's people out there. I'm just saying, I feel like we felt like there was a gap as well. In the space that we could fill in a perspective that people might want to hear. Yeah. Right? And what do we think? What do these tech people think? And we're not representative of the tech people. Let's be clear. Yeah. Right? We're just two of tech people. So I think it's just a demographic that you don't hear from very often in these sort of topics. Yeah. Because typically, and it's not true for everybody, typically engineers are very introverted. A lot of engineers are introverted. Not everybody's introverted. Everybody's different, obviously. But a lot of them are, right? And so they don't, this not the type of stuff that I think many engineers would do.
At least not publicly.
It's not publicly, yeah. At least, again, that's not based on any sort of factual information. That's literally just based on what I've observed in my day-to-day in working in the industry, right?
Totally agree.
So, yeah, I think hopefully you find our perspective interesting. We try to make it as interesting as possible. Like, this is our first time, so it may have been boring. I'm sorry if we bored you, but if you're stuck around this long, I hope you enjoyed. I hope you subscribe. But yeah, what else do you want to cover in the first one?
In the first one,
I mean, we already covered a lot. Yeah, we did. I didn't think we were going to go that long.
Same.
But we might have jumped around a bit, but whatever.
No, but I think we covered essentially what our agenda is, who we are, and I think maybe that's what we should talk about too. Just like we're common when it comes to tech, like our occupation, but we couldn't be any different, right? Or more different, right? Like
Right.
we both took different paths to get to the tech space.
Yeah.
So for example, prior to joining the military, I was like in the streets doing what streets people do.
From Oakland, California.
Yeah.
Before Oakland was what you see in parts of Oakland today.
Yeah.
This was Oakland 20 years ago.
Oh yeah.
More than that?
Yeah, before gentrification kicked in.
Before gentrification kicked in, so you can do some research onto what that was like. Maybe Rocky will tell us one day.
Yeah, no,
his story.
We can set up a episode for them from that. But like, I think that's really what sets up great
So
discussions.
you're trying to essentially you're trying to explain like what exactly your background is.
Yeah.
Right. And so I'll talk. Yeah, that's a good idea. That's a good idea. Yeah.
So I think to your point, like we do have those differences that allow us to provide or shine light on different perspectives, and that's where I learned from you and your background. Right, I'm able to like acquire like, oh, I didn't think about it this way because you're bringing a perspective that's coming from you as a Muslim, right? Like, I don't know if you're comfortable talking about that, but like,
I'm proud of who I am, right? I'm an American.
Yeah.
I'm Muslim, right?
Yeah.
That's just there's not really contradictions there, right? That's just who I am at the end of the day, right? And I'm proud of that.
Yeah.
But like I'm also not, I will say like I'm hopefully I've tried to be a very tolerable person in my life, right?
Yeah.
I try not to hurt anybody. I try to be fair in my day to day, like to charge everybody, and that's who I am. And so like I guess a little bit my background is like I'm from a middle class family, right? I'm not super like probably middle class, right? Like I'm not super well off. Like my family wasn't super well off or anything like that. My parents were educated, right? They brought us over here because America had a really good education system, right? Or so we thought. No, but like
looking for opportunities though for your family to grow,
and I think I'm grateful that that they brought me to the U.S. right, and we grew up here because safety, the opportunities that exist here are not, and so you should be like everybody should be very grateful to be living here. So yeah, I'm grateful for that. But yeah, middle class family, not really rich or anything. It's just middle class. Not rich at all, actually. Just middle class.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it just hopefully that gives you a little bit more information about like what our perspective is just in life in general and where we're coming from.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, exactly. And so I mean, like for me, joining the military right after that, right, gave me a different perspective. And then of course coming to Maryland, and there is a culture shift going from West Coast to East Coast, and kind of going through that here at the University of Maryland, but not really, I would say, because the military provided that buffer.
Right.
But yeah, I think I don't come from, I wouldn't even say middle class family. I'd say probably lower middle class family, just because, my family has struggled financially.
Right. Like your parents didn't have a college degree, right?
Exactly.
Right.
Like,
they came over here.
My father didn't, I think he stopped at second grade. Yeah.
Wow.
So, right.
Yeah.
So, didn't speak a lick of English. He didn't have the same opportunities
of course
that I was able to have.
Right.
But to your point, right, my parents brought us here, or they came here to set up a family so they could have the opportunities. They being us, their family, could have the opportunities that they did not have.
Of course.
So those are the things I'm most proud of, when I look back.
Yeah.
And to your point, like those are where my perspectives are coming from and how I justify my actions, right?
Yeah.
To your point as well, like I try to be fair in my daily doings. I try to be a good person within my moral compass, right? Obviously, everyone's raised differently, so you're all going to have different moral compasses. And I guess like those are things we'll probably also dive into too. Like, what does that mean to be good, right? Versus bad, versus like, et cetera, like with all these lane shifts that we're seeing in our society.
Cool. Do we have a topic we want to cover today specifically? I know we have a lot of topics.
Yeah, we have a ton of topics.
We mentioned some of them in this, but we didn't really.
Man, we've got so many topics. We wanted to talk about Twitter censure. I'm just gonna flag a bunch of topics that we have on mind. on the top of my mind right now because like these are things that we will talk about, whether it be today or other topics. So we have that. Some of the transgender issues that we're seeing out there, and what does that mean to our society? We'll provide our thoughts there. Probably not in today's podcast because that we could probably
can go on forever on that.
Not only that, I think we also want to talk about generational wealth and what does that mean to us specifically as immigrants, right? Like who've come here and like how we've been able to, like what do we think about it? Like what's the intent, right? Like, and of course, like streams of revenue that we can probably discuss, like whether it be through entrepreneurship, like our day-to-day jobs. Right. Of course, we don't represent our companies. Just want to make sure that's clear.
Yeah.
And of course, like other endeavors that we're interested in, whether it be like, the food business and what does that mean, or even real estate, right? Like, I think that's another thing that we could probably discuss here that I think would gather a lot of interest, at least from what I've heard, is folks or people in our age group, we'll just say 30s, right, have always reached out to me and said like, hey, like, how are you guys buying homes? And it's like, we've taken different avenues, right? So for example, I have a VA loan. I took advantage of that when I was like 19, bought my first home then, and was able to manage that through
19.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the topic, right? That's the topic itself. Like, not many people will buy a house. Yeah. Not even, like you said, VA loan because you were in the military. Yeah. But not even people in the military are able to buy a house. So like, you have to have some. You have to think through about what you're doing, how you're spending your money, and so I'm sure that'd be a great topic.
Yeah, that'd be a great topic too. So I mean, we have.
I also want to add, like, we might also want to talk about we're probably gonna talk about the Ukraine war too.
Oh yes.
Right. We have different thoughts and like some. Again, not everybody's gonna agree with our thoughts, but they're just our thoughts, right? Yeah. At the end of the day, war is bad.
Yeah, war.
Everybody,
is bad.
I think Rocky and I are agreement on that. War is bad, but we have some thoughts on sort of the surroundings.
Yeah,
I think,
and the framings too, right? Like I do think there's a lot of for
for
fear of actually going into it right now.
Yeah, I know.
The hypocrisy that we've seen in certain instances related to this war and using this war. But once again, war is bad. I want to make sure that that's clear. The death of fellow human beings is bad. Yeah. But I also want to call out that, there are atrocities on every side.
Right.
And I think we should think about that. We should stress test it. Right. Shameless plug for stress test, by the way.
Okay.
So, those are things that we'll talk about soon. But
cool.
For today, do we have any topics, I guess? I should bring that up.
I don't know. We've been going for a pretty long time. It's been about 40 minutes we've been recording this.
Yeah. Do we want to give
I don't know if I want to start a topic right now because I feel like if we do, it's gonna take a long time.
Yeah.
And then people let's see what you guys think about first video. Yeah. And if you're we want, like, if you have topics you want us to talk about, like, please send us topics. Like, if you have things you've seen, like, we might not be aware of everything that's going on. We try our best to keep up with current events, but if you have something that you think we should discuss, send it to us. Like, comment on the comment, or just send us a message. I think you can do that on YouTube, right?
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Provide comments.
Wherever we're putting this this podcast.
Medium,
please send us a message and let us know.
Yeah. And we'll try our best to provide snippets on certain commentaries.
Right.
Hopefully that'll be a catalyst for y'all to watch the entire episode. But we'll do our best to kind of summarize certain discussions so you guys can watch along. And of course, we'll probably be on other social media plugs as well, like probably Twitter, Instagram, et cetera.
Right.
We've got to get that set up. But in the meantime, like Hammad said,
hopefully we're still calling this stress test because Rocky has plugged this name many times. So otherwise we're going to go over this video and we're going to replace every instance of stress test with the new name of the
that would be really podcast. We probably should have researched whether stress test was actually being utilized in production, as we like to say.
That's
right?
A good idea.
We should probably done that first, but
I think again, if you think you'd be interested in hearing what we have to say and you want to hear our thoughts, subscribe and hit the notification bell. That's what they have on YouTube, right? So and that'll just help us out. And again, we have 0 subscribers right now because we haven't even posted this video, but hopefully we get some subscribers and people are interested. Again, we're not really here for the money. We're really here to just do this exercise and put our thoughts out there, right? And we're not here to offend anybody. I want to repeat that again. We're not here to hurt anybody. We're not here for any of that. We're just really here just to have discourse. This is just supposed to be a forum for Rocky and I Yeah, do you want to have you have any closing remarks?
No, just hit that notification bell and don't forget stress test. Hopefully that's not actually copyrighted anywhere.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, we should have checked that out first.
Okay. All right.
All right, cool.
Cool. Awesome. Well, thanks everyone, and enjoy the rest of your day, weekend, whenever we post this,
Yep.
whatever that is. All right.
Peace.
Bye.